Welcome to Syndicated Nightmares, where each week we take a deep dive into an episode of Freddy's Nightmares based on the A Nightmare on Elm Street film series. This week, hosts Dave and Michelle are joined once again by Mark Dubovec to talk about Season 2, Episode 20, Dust to Dust, original air date February 25th, 1990, directed by Bill Froelich and written by Bill Froelich, David Braff, and Jonathan Glassner. This is a follow-up to Prime Cut from a few episodes ago that the three of us chatted about, and the one-sentence synopsis is 3 recovering cannibals have an unfortunate relapse and wind up eating an intruder who's been afflicted with a strange disease.
You're not kidding about recovering cannibals, because they actually have a meeting about it. Like Alcoholics Anonymous.
That's how the episode starts off. We have Johnny, Ginger, and Mary Beth. They are in Ginger's trailer with a Cannibal Anonymous meeting, and there's like 15 or 20 other people joining them in this meeting. I didn't know that cannibalism was such a hot topic back then, but apparently that's something that they wanted to address, so here we are.
I didn't realize Springwood had such a problem with cannibals that they feel that they are a persecuted underclass.
Right.
Although this does explain, if there's, as we've talked about on the last time, that all these episodes are considered canon in the Nightmares film series, right?
I don't think that they are considered canon.
I mean, there's all the Freddy Krueger movies, there's all these disbelieving adults, but it's like, well, yeah, they're not going to care about a dream demon. We got cannibals and other spooks running around causing trouble. So
that's true. So during the Cannibal Anonymous meeting, Johnny tells the group that his cannibalism first started off as survival because he was in that plane crash, and then later he and Ginger and Mary Beth found out that they really liked it, but they decided to form this group because their lives are now being ruined by their lifestyle. Their credit cards have been revoked. Ginger had to move out to a trailer, and so now they're vowing to never eat humans again.
And Johnny lost his job as president of his company.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And Ginger is living in Springwood Trailer Park, so they have a place for everyone in Springwood, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And I liked Mary Beth's entrance, that they're like having this meeting and then you hear a toilet flush and she just barges in and is brash and pushing everyone aside.
Yeah, she's still the same Mary Beth, still very self-absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
So they end the meeting with their Cannibal Anonymous mantra is, "I promise to never again raise my fork against my fellow man." I think that should be on a t-shirt, really.
Yeah, I think it should be. You got a picture of a fork with the red slash through it, like no forks. Like the Ghostbusters logo.
Yes.
Oh, it's also very interesting because they were Johnny starts talking about like one of the other members who we don't really learn much about them. They're just kind of gone after this scene, but he talks about one of them who was tempted, and he's describing it in very sexualized terms. Like he was tempted by like a white thighs and succulent breasts, and it's like a very weird the way they're treating cannibalism as it's an addiction.
Yeah, like it's a sexual deviance instead of, some preferred way to eat.
And I liked that they had on the fridge, there's like an anatomy chart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
Posted on the fridge.
Yeah. So after the meeting, Mary Beth is asleep in the trailer's one bedroom, and Johnny and Ginger are I guess, in the living room, which is maybe about 10 feet away from where Mary Beth is, and Ginger and Johnny start like going at it because they have been celibate since the plane crash, and Johnny just can't take it anymore.
I do like there is a nice shot here before the main plot kicks in, where you have Mary Beth sleeping in the background, and in the foreground you have the couch, and then on the floor you have Johnny and Ginger, but then in the middle ground you have the fridge, which is like a nice little shot that encapsulates the whole dynamics of their relationship.
of what's keeping those three together.
Yeah.
Their common denominator. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we have Freddy is like wearing a chef's hat, and he's like the host of a cooking show, which I like to. I like when they sort of do fun stuff, and it's not just him. It's not just a close up of Freddy making a quip to the camera, but they really like had this full on set of him like throwing stuff into bowls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then,
he has something like, "You are what you eat, babe," and then he throws in 3 eggs, flour, sugar, butter, and chopped meat. But he can't find the chopped meat, so some guy on a gurney comes rolling in, and so Freddy chops him up. And that's his recipe. So maybe if there's ever in a Nightmare on Elm Street cookbook, this recipe will be in there.
Oh, and I guess I jumped ahead, because right before we see Freddy, Ginger and Johnny are about to have sex, and then this random guy bursts into the trailer and collapses.
As he says ominously, "It's too late."
He runs in and says, "Help me. They'll find me," and he's having like terrible headaches, and then he collapses. So when we come back from Freddy, we see Johnny putting ketchup and pepper on the guy's arm. But Ginger and Mary Beth try to stop him, but it turns out it's a dream.
I like the line that Ginger has, "Bet you can't just take one bite."
Mm-hmm.
And then this random guy wakes up and suddenly is like crazy and lunging at Johnny and attacking him. And so I don't know why, but they have spears mounted on the wall. Yeah. And so they stab him to death with those spears.
And so they don't know what to do with this dead body. So as cannibals do, they decided to eat him to get rid of the evidence.
I just like how the way they proceed to that. It's, we need to get rid of the body. How? Set the table. How to cut to the next scene, and they're finishing him up. So
yeah.
So I guess that's one advantage of cannibalism is, you have a ready-made process for disposal. Yeah,
very true. Well, they cooked him as a liver pate and some other ways, because I guess
a casserole.
A casserole. So they are set for dinner for like the next week because of this guy, and it's good that none of him went to waste.
As they're finishing, Johnny's like, "Wait, we forgot to say grace." Fitting, we're doing this recording on the birthday of the late Tobe Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because that part just made me think of the cannibal family in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, they're eating people, but they're going to be like, "We have family values, people."
Yeah.
Nice.
What was the grace that he said?
"Oh, if you didn't want us to eat, you wouldn't have made us out of meat," or something like that.
Yeah. And the last episode we were talking about like the bodies, because there was the bodies from the plane crash and them rotting, and like how long would a body stay fresh, and here they're just, he dies and they cook it up and not wasting a thing.
I don't think they ever explain what they do with his bones, because unless they ground those up too somehow, but maybe maybe I'm overthinking it.
And then the next day they see this guy's picture on the cover of the Springwood Gazette. And apparently he escaped from a government lab, and he's believed to be carrying an unknown but deadly, highly contagious virus.
So, word of advice to all you cannibals out there: before you eat someone, make sure they're not carrying any deadly viruses.
Yeah. So I think in the newspaper article, it talks about if you see this man, call this number, and it's pretty much the equivalent of like the CDC to call them. And so Ginger calls, or is it Ginger or Mary Beth who's talking to him?
I think Mary Beth starts the call,
okay,
and then Ginger takes over because Mary Beth starts acting like Mary Beth.
Okay, yeah.
And there's even a bit of a pause. I like this little moment where she hands the phone off to Ginger, and then Ginger's listening, and she's like, "No, she's always like that."
Yeah, so they called the CDC to see like, what is this contagion this guy has, and the CDC wants to know if Ginger, Mary Beth, or Johnny ate anything that the guy touched, and they say yes, and so the CDC wants their info so they can come and like pick them up.
Apparently one of the symptoms of the diseases is it causes personality changes. So Mary Beth's nightmare about that is that she now likes to clean and can't stop cleaning the toilet. So that's that's her nightmare.
A fate worse than death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a really funny moment with this, with Mary Beth being upset that she was going to be reduced to being a toilet cleaner, or like basically the trailer maid. And Johnny's trying to calm her down. And then Ginger comes in and she starts talking about how dirty the toilet is. And someone should take care of that.
And then soon after that's when the scientists arrive in their biohazard suits, and just to show that the government employs the best and brightest, one of them trips on his face as soon as he walks in, and then steers them, "Don't worry, we're professionals."
And I thought it was going to be I thought it was part of a nightmare sequence, but it wasn't. But they're like, "We've brought body bags because that's what that's what
we're on a low budget."
Has. Yeah.
And then I just want to make sure I'm not crazy and I just didn't hear this wrong. The one scientist is named Dr. Picard, right?
Yes.
Yes, he is.
So I think this came out after Star Trek: The Next Generation. So.
Well, this was 1990. When was The Next Generation?
I want to say around the same time.
Okay.
I think it was like 87 that it started.
Oh, that Star Trek thing, that's never going to catch on. We can get away with that.
No one will ever know.
Yeah.
So the CDC, they come running in and they scan Johnny, Ginger, and Mary Beth. And then they spray them with this unknown substance. And the three of them kind of like become paralyzed. But they're still like cognizant of what's going on. They just can't move. So the CDC people like kind of just take them off to the lab.
Mm-hmm. And then I like this, that the lab sequence opens up with a point of view shot, I believe, from Johnny with the bag being zipped open, and we're seeing through his eyes as one of the scientists is sweeping up some blue powder off the floor, which is just a little, I wonder what that could be moment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even catch that. And I haven't watched much Star Trek, but that actor who played Dr. Picard I was looking at his filmography, and he was on Voyager. So it was after this, but he became, an actor known for being in Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're a TV actor long enough, eventually you make an appearance on some Star Trek show or spinoff.
Star Trek and Law and Order.
But apparently this lab is 5 levels under Springwood.
Yeah.
So we're now we know Springwood has a trailer park and a government lab underneath.
Yeah.
And Mary Beth still wants to freshen up because she wants to know how the room service is at this place.
Yes. And they have like cages that they're supposed to sleep in, and she says like, what if we have to go to the bathroom? And it's like a cup with a funnel attached.
So she starts to inquire about the same luxuries you would get at a hotel, but it's obvious she's not going to get those.
And she thought she'd get them in the woods in the previous episode, and now she thinks in a secret government lab she'll get the same thing. So.
Yep.
Oh, Mary Beth.
And then this is where we meet the other astronaut who's locked up with them. I think Lieutenant Garrett, I think is his name.
All 3 of them are now in a uniform. Mary Beth and Ginger have on a pink uniform, and Johnny is wearing a blue uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So very gender specific for no reason, really.
This is where we meet the other astronaut, Lieutenant Garrett, the bearded guy. I just wrote him down as the monkey man because he's howling and acting crazy like a monkey.
Yeah, and apparently it was asteroid dust that these astronauts contracted, and then that it's spread if it's ingested.
Mm-hmm.
It's a self-generating organism is what they refer to it as.
And then we see what happens at the end of this. The other astronaut is acting like a monkey, then he starts howling like a wolf, and then he just sort of turns into this blue dust.
Yep, with a very cheap 80s style dissolve effect.
Right.
Which wouldn't have looked out of place in an episode of Star Trek back in the day. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a lot more sci-fi than Freddy's Nightmares usually gets.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so now they're all, Johnny and Ginger and Mary Beth, they're all worried that they're gonna disintegrate into blue dust.
Mm-hmm.
And Johnny has a sex dream Or I guess they all three of them, like their dreams combine.
Yeah. And then I also like how first he goes for Mary Beth, and then he's lured away by Ginger on the gurney, and then they cut back and forth between Johnny and Ginger on the gurney in different positions as like slides across the floor with Mary Beth watching in horror at the whole thing, and it's like very, very almost slapsticky.
Yeah. Yeah. So the scientists are kind of puzzled by the fact that these three are sharing the same dream, and they just consider that the organism has taken over all three of them, and they're kind of like sharing the same parasite at the same time.
Yeah. Almost like a hive mind almost.
Yeah.
And then this is where it gets revealed to the scientists that they ate the astronaut. They're like, they mentioned that they had speared him, and like, well, how did you dispose of the body? And their answer is in 3 courses. And then my favorite like comedic line of the episode was there's two other scientists who are watching from the booth, and the female scientist freaks out and she's like, "You people are disgusting and you should be killed," and runs off. And then the male scientist goes into the microphone and he's like, "Oh, she'll be okay. Her brother was eaten by cannibals."
Yeah, I thought like maybe that would come around again. That maybe her brother was on the plane with them or something, but nope, that's the end of it.
Right.
It's just cannibalism is a common thing in Springwood. I also like how when they explain how they killed the guy, originally they used spears, and the scientists were like, "Well, that's rather inventive."
Yeah.
I think that was the episode winking at us, like, yeah, using spears was kind of goofy, but
yeah,
we did it.
We learned that the signs of the organism are facial tics, shivering, bursts of strength, unusual behavior, a spurt of sexual desire, and then you turn into dust. So that's the sequence of when you're about to go. And it happens all within like the same 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And the unusual behavior from this point on is always like movie quotes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All classic movie quotes.
Yeah, they quoted the Wizard of Oz. They quoted Spartacus.
Dr. Strangelove.
Okay. Yeah. I was kind of half expecting them to say like, "I'm king of the world," but Titanic hadn't come out yet. So I was like, well, maybe if they remade it, they would say it.
But there was like a similar line to that though.
Yeah, and I think that's just what made me think it.
It was like, "Look at me, Ma, I'm on top of the world."
That's from White Heat, starring James Cagney.
Oh, okay.
Where that's a classic film noir where the third Naked Gun movie parodied that plots with a cop going undercover in prison to find out about the big score that the criminal is planning, and then when he gets out, goes to do it. But the James Cagney criminal has a mother fixation. It's a very weird relationship. Like, she's part of the gang too. And by the end, he is like just being shot at by police, and he's on top of some like industrial machinery that's about to blow up, and he screams, "Made it, Ma, top of the world," and then it goes boom.
As we're learning about the signs of the organism, the facial tics and everything, when they're jotting them or saying them aloud, Johnny is going through each side effect. So it's made very clear that Johnny isn't going to be with us much longer.
Yeah, that scene reminded me of Airplane, when Leslie Nielsen is talking about the signs of food poisoning as the pilot starts going through them at the moment right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Johnny is quickly turned to dust, and the scientists don't know what to do with Mary Beth and Ginger because they realize that the organism hasn't taken to them, but now they know too much, so they're a liability, and they decide to inject another organism into them, so they turn Johnny's dust into a protein powder milkshake, and they give it to them.
And this made me think of South Park, because there is an episode where Cartman drank Kenny's ashes in chocolate milk.
Oh dear.
Oh my God.
And then actually the upcoming dream sequence, I think we'll talk about it Well, I'll get back to when we get to that scene. I'll bring it up again because I think there's there's a Freddy bit between this scene and that. So
there is Freddy drinking the shake, and he says like Johnny on the spot or something like that.
Talk about taking a powder.
Yeah.
And then Freddy claims that he's the one who ate Spartacus or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's the first half of that episode.
Yep. After Freddy does his bit, it's back to Ginger and Mary Beth, and then Johnny starts talking through Mary Beth's stomach, which that was the other South Park moment reminded me of, because Kenny starts talking through Cartman in that episode. So, and then it turns out that was a dream as well. So
yes. Yeah, and in that dream, Johnny tells them that they're all going to turn to dust too, and then Freddy comes back on, and we see Freddy's complaint department.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Freddy mentions something that he's no more Mr. Nice Guy. So I thought that was a nice little wink and a nod to the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't even make that connection.
Oh, you didn't? Well, welcome to Freddy's Nightmares, Dave.
Yeah.
And then he also explains like other bad things that could have happened to Johnny's ashes besides consuming them. And if I remember, Freddy even notes like an enema at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really trust what Freddy would do with someone's remains, but
yeah,
I don't even trust Freddy's remains because I've seen part 3.
Yeah.
And then there's a scene with these two scientists in the lab named Catherine and Clayton, and I just want to give Catherine a shout out because she is Babs from Animal House.
Really?
The sorority girl that says that boy is a PIG pig.
Oh.
That's her.
That's cool.
But Catherine is, I guess they're a couple, and Catherine is accusing Clayton of lusting after Ginger.
Yeah. And he asserts it's purely scientific. And then Dr. Picard appears to say he doesn't like what's going on. So he's apparently the only moral scientist in this group.
Yeah, he doesn't agree with holding the women captive, especially since they don't have the signs of the organism.
Yeah.
But little does he know what just happened.
And then apparently I forget who says this, but Mary Beth and Ginger have lost their sex drives.
Yeah.
And so they're theorizing that sex hormones are what makes this organism grow.
Yeah.
And then, as they're discussing this, there's the two other scientists. Their names are Janet and Oliver, are having sex in the booth, and Mary Beth sees them and gets kind of horny, and then she goes through the signs and makes a movie quote and turns to dust.
Yep. Which I remember when that scene started, I thought this must be another dream sequence because the two scientists deliberately walked into that area in the observation deck of this lab. Well, they can clearly be seen by the people they're studying, which they should know that, but they apparently, I guess if you're underground 5 stories or whatever it is, and you've been there for so long, you don't care after a while.
Oh, yeah.
But they established that they can't leave, so they're living there. The scientists are living there in that underground lab. So you would think they would have beds or something,
a living
somewhere.
Quarter.
Yeah.
How long have they been underneath there? You gotta shake it up a little bit, Maybe one's like a big exhibitionist, and they're like, finally, new people.
Right.
I guess when you're down there long enough.
So now Marianne has turned to dust, and we are down to just Ginger.
Dr. Picard is, at the point where he's over it and wants to leave the project, but he cannot leave because they're all locked in this lab until the project is over.
Yeah.
Due to some top secret whatever, he's not able to leave. I'm sure he like signed a waiver or something that said like under no circumstance can you leave.
And so presumably they have some sort of contact with the outside world that would say, hey, we got it done, whatever it is they're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's a little vague what they're hoping to accomplish there, but it gets them down there. So
all of the scientists are locked in there, but Dr. Picard thinks that there's a way to get out. So Ginger is taken to this table for more testing to like try to find an antidote, since she hasn't had any of the symptoms yet. They think that maybe something in her blood is resilient to the organism. And so she's kind of like she is kind of stripped down. It was just an opportunity to have her be in her bra and underwear, so it's kind of voluntold that she has to get naked for further testing.
Yep. And that lead scientist, the one that's apparently shacked up with Babs, is the one who's like really into doing this part of it. So
yeah. Yeah, he's very turned on at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then she pulls him aside, and the two scientists are arguing about it, and Dr. Picard ends up eavesdropping on a speaker, over the speaker, and he hears them say that they want to make him a host for the organism.
Mm-hmm.
So so now he wants to get out of there, and he tries to help. Well, he has a dream where he tries to help Ginger escape, and they go through the air duct, and then it just circles around, and they end up back in the lab. And apparently the air ducts don't go anywhere.
Yeah,
I did like that point where we see them crawl into the air ducts, and then the camera kind of moves around following what is presumably their movements as we hear them talk about this way or that way, and then it just like there they just right back where they started.
The scientists then all come together, including Dr. Picard, and they decide to toast their achievements with what looks like a glass of milk. And they all drink it, including Henry, but Henry's milk is poisoned. And he rather quickly goes through all the signs and symptoms of the organism. He starts to convulse and then turns into dust, but that was just a dream.
And he goes through a whole bunch of movie quotes right then and there, not just
right.
one.
Yeah. I remember a Star Trek one.
Well, that's fitting if they gave Dr. Picard a Star Trek quote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't recognize any of them, so I wasn't sure what they were from.
I had to look up which movie it was from, but I had heard the quote before. But the you know how to whistle, don't you? You just put your lips together and then blow.
No, that's to have and have not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's Humphrey Bogart.
And then, he wakes up from that and he decides, like, since they're going to poison me, I'm going to poison them first. And so there's like 5 drinks on a tray, and he puts powder in 4 drinks for the other 4 scientists.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like there's a label on every single glass, so maybe each glass is labeled per scientist, and that way, like, he knows which glass they're going to grab.
Yeah, I expected fully that he was going to grab the wrong one, and that one of the other scientists was going to like still be alive to be a villain for the final showdown, final escape.
Yeah,
but they didn't go that route. They start one by one. They start going poof.
Yeah, some of them were better at doing movie quotes than others.
Yeah.
So as the scientists are turning to dust, that's when Dr. Picard goes to talk to Ginger, and he's like, I'm going to help you escape. And so as they're trying to get out of there, that's when all the scientists start turning to dust. And then Ginger is so elated that she's going to get out. They start to, she and Dr. Picard start to kiss, and then a computer warning comes on. And
it was something about how, like, the one difference that she has is that she has been celibate for 6 months, and therefore it is sexual desire or sexual thoughts that basically cause the virus to go into its final stage. Mm-hmm. And then Ginger goes And then it's funny, they got, I think everyone, there was always a pile of blue dust or blue ashes on the ground next to their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, Ginger also left her bra behind.
Yes, her very purple bra.
Right.
I mean, like 2 or 3 other women went poof as well. Was she the only one wearing a brassiere?
Yeah, maybe the other women were just freeballing it. Like, who knows?
Who knows? Well, they did say it was a low-budget scientific enterprise. So. And then that leaves Dr. Picard all by himself in this bunker, surrounded by the ashes of his colleagues and Ginger. So
we don't know if he ever made it out or not. It just left. Yeah. The episode ended with just there.
Yeah, and then there's a sign that says Freddy's Last Supper, and he's got it's plates on the table, and each plate has, the dust of a person. Yeah. They're all labeled, and he says, "Welcome to Freddy's Last Supper, where the elite meet to eat each other."
Which, when I saw that phrase, Freddy's Last Supper, I really hope that some fan artist has made a portrait out there of the Last Supper. When I saw the phrase Freddy's Last Supper, I was hoping for a horror movie version of the Last Supper portrait with Freddy at the center as Jesus, and then go down the line, you got Jason and Michael Myers, Leatherface.
I'm Googling, it's been done.
Oh.
So, Mark, how did you like the episode?
I liked it better than its predecessor, of Prime Cut. I think the story was more focused. I think they were more sure on their feet about what they were trying to do. They were definitely playing up the comedy more. Mm-hmm. And I thought there were a lot of funny lines that were definitely playing on, like, almost like a comedy of manners. Like, we're cannibals, but we're trying to get past that. And just like the weird morality thing. I definitely liked the first half better when they're in the trailer and dealing with, Cannibals Anonymous. Yeah. The scientific stuff. I think the only thing is the only 2 drawbacks. One, I think they overused the dream stuff a little too much, which I mean it is Freddy's Nightmares, but I think they were poking fun at that as well by the end. But I think some of them could have been cut out. And in the end, it just kind of ends. I was waiting for some sort of final confrontation, some sort of final conflict, and it just kind of, they all go poof and it's over. Mm-hmm. But overall, I did like it. I do think it was more my criticism of Prime Cut was it didn't seem sure what it wanted to be. Was it, because it's the dream stuff and it was very overwhelming. This time I thought it was more consistent.
Yeah, and with Freddy's Nightmares and all the previous episodes, a lot of it maybe just for filler. There seems to be a lot of dreams that to like either be a red herring to the plot, but the dreams are only like 30 seconds long, so it doesn't really have that much of an effect. You do get used to it in Freddy's Nightmares, being fooled by these dreams.
Although I did like when they all started sharing at the dream.
That was cool, yeah.
That was funny, and then I like I said earlier, like when they're on the gurney, every time we see them like skate across, they're in a different position. It's just So I mean, I guess Freddy's Nightmares, you expect the dream stuff, but I do think they were having more fun with that element here, and they weren't trying to necessarily be surreal or weird or creepy. They were just, it's goofy.
Yeah.
Like I remember when Mary Beth fainted when she found out that we just ate this guy with a virus. Like they actually had a literal cartoon sound effect.
Oh right, they did.
and then Ginger and Johnny just like watch her fall and like whatever.
And then you just go on with their conversation. Yeah. So Dave, how did you like it?
I thought it was fun. I liked the humor of it. It was good as like a funny episode. I think I might have liked the prior one better. Just even though it was a bit uneven, I liked that it was more grounded, whereas this one was just over the top from the get-go and all the way through. Yeah. But I still enjoyed it. Yeah. What did you think?
I liked it. I think I liked it a little bit more than Prime Cut because this, as Mark said, this episode knew what it wanted to be. Prime Cut didn't really seem to know what direction it was headed in. I don't think that we needed Prime Cut for this episode to exist, though. I think that this also could have been a standalone. All we needed to know is that they are cannibals. They don't want to be cannibals, but they are.
Yeah.
So they didn't really need to go together. I wonder if the three actors, when they signed on to do an episode, if they were like, well, we want to do 2 episodes, or like how that came to be, since not every Freddy's Nightmares episode has a sequel to it. So I get curious about that. But
Yeah.
I also agree with Mark on the ending for this episode, Dust to Dust, that I would have liked to have some sort of closure with Dr. Picard, to know like what he went through, or how did he get out of there? Like, what's his next step? So I think that was needed for this episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even if it was just him like, oh no, I'm trapped down here forever, that would have been something.
Yeah.
Instead, it's just he looks around and we go to Freddy's Last Supper.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed they didn't, because the actor playing Johnny was Wally on Leave It to Beaver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually almost disappointed that they didn't get Jerry Mathers, who played the Beaver, to just somehow be in this at some point. That would have been funny. And then then I would have hoped he would have been killed and eaten by them, and then we could have all thought he ate the beaver.
Yeah. It would have been phenomenal if Johnny's movie quote, when he was going through the symptoms, if he was like, "Oh, gee, Dad," and then just went out. Or said something about Eddie Haskell or the beaver, like just some kind of nod to it. That would have been funny. So, and maybe that was proposed and he was just completely against it. We have no idea.
No idea.
Well, thank you again, Mark, for joining us.
Thanks again for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Is there anything else on your plate that you would like to promote or talk about?
Well, I think on the last episode I talked about my children's book. I will say that since we recorded that episode, a short story I wrote has been picked up for publication in an anthology. The anthology collection is Gypsum Sound Tales. They were putting together a collection of stories, of horror stories based on gates, like locked or unlocked gates. And the story I wrote called Strays will be in that collection later this year. My story is about a basement monster and a bunch of feral cats, which is all I'll say on that. But a locked basement door does play an important part in the story. So,
thank you for listening. Please join us next week as we discuss Freddy's Nightmares Season 2, Episode 21, Prisoner of Love, where Freddy shares his poetry.